It is 7:09. I hope you are well this Shrove Tuesday. Now, you'll have heard a lot about the bad smell coming from the controversial Wally's Quarry landfill site in Silverdale over the last couple of years. People living locally are fed up with the stink coming into their homes and have previously staged protests outside the gates. They formed a campaign group, Stop the Stink, but now 4 key members of it have stepped down and say they won't be involved ever again. I'll be speaking to 2 of them in just a second. This comes after an incredibly busy 2022 for the campaign, as Jack can explain.
The last 3 weeks have been horrific. I think it's worse now than it was this time last year.
That's Silverdale woman Becky Curry speaking to us in January of last year. Her young son Matthew is suffering terribly because of the gas coming from the quarry. She's trying to get the European Court of Human Rights to do something about it.
Hazardous waste, including arsenic, rat poison and zinc, has been tipped at a Newcastle under-Lyme landfill.
February, and Newcastle's Conservative MP, Aaron Bell, alleges in Parliament rat poison and other waste has been illegally dumped. Wally's Quarry Limited say those allegations are false and there's no evidence to support them. Spring was a time of more protest.
Protesters have been back at Wally's Quarry in Newcastle.
You only need to use the nose test and you can tell that it is absolutely putrid down here.
Well, I've glued myself with super glue and tied myself with chains, and it's basically because no one's listening.
In April, Simon, who lives nearby, tied himself to the landfill's gates in protest. And 3 Prime Ministers ago, Boris Johnson was asked about the smell in Parliament.
If it is necessary to take further action to remove these malodorous vapours, Mr. Speaker, then we will.
In the summer, despite over £10,000 being raised by the local community, 26 protesters ended their fight against an injunction banning them from protesting at the gates because of potentially huge legal bills.
For each of the 26 named defendants, that's 40 grand each. That would be ruinous to a lot of us, and we can't compete with that. We're just a small community. We're not a multi-million pound business, and so this is the practical solution to this.
In the winter, people living nearby said the problem had returned.
The smell coming from a landfill in Newcastle is worse because of the cold weather. That's according to campaigners. Work is being done to cover some of the site at Wally's Quarry.
And now this. On Friday evening, a tweet was sent out saying 4 key members of the Stop the Stink campaign were calling it a day.
Been such a huge story in this part of the world over the last couple of years. Jack's done really well there to cram it all into the space of 2 minutes. Well, listening to that is Audrey Young and Lee Bernadette Walford, who, until Friday, were key members of the Stop the Stink campaign. Good morning, Lee and Audrey.
Good morning.
Morning, both. I hope you're well. Lee, first of all, why have you stepped down?
I've stepped down with the admin from the Stop the Stink Fighting for Our Community group, with Audrey Simo, who's known as Sticky, Simo Burgess, and Dr. Mixall, in solidarity with Dr. Mixall. There's been, without going into everything, there was a few people trying to sabotage it. We've spent a lot of time away from our families. My husband, aunts, and my 4 children, especially Aoife and Aidan, have, it's been detrimental in our home. I'm supposed to be retired, Lee. Right. I'm supposed to be retired. And this has overtaken my life and Audrey's and Simo's. And I just don't know how Dr. Mixall's wife and family have coped with it, because he has spearheaded the campaign. He's definitely the guy in the campaign.
As you step down, Audrey, how much of a difference do you feel you've made at this stage?
I think we've made quite a lot of difference. We've cost them a lot of money. They went from 1.8 million in profit to 1.2 million loss within the year. We've made people aware. We've we've just been a platform, really. To the community, from the community to the sources. I think we've made life very difficult for them.
That's making life difficult for the company. But when it comes to the main objective, if you look at the name of the group, Stop the Stink, have things improved?
They have improved dramatically. All the gas wells, there's pressure for the gas wells because of us and things like that. But we know it's not over, but we also know what information we've learned and passed over, so that we know it will stop eventually, because they can't escape what we've passed over.
People, Lee, were saying to me yesterday when I said that you were going to be on the show, people were saying, how bad is the smell in Silverdale now? Are you noticing, as Audrey was just touching on there, Lee, are you noticing a real difference?
Of course, there's a huge difference, but unfortunately the EA put out, I think it was the other day or yesterday, because I do still follow it a little bit, that they're installing between 10 and 12 full gas wells on the southeast of the landfill, which that will really affect. They're saying that they're going to capture and destroy, just all the usual generic things that they put out, and they're using extraction to take away the gases. But I think that, there's been a warning put out, and by Wally's Quarry as well. So I think that they're going to be under siege. My problem is not just the gases, it's the particulate matter, which is measured at 10, and the real bad one is 2.5. And I don't think that has been fully managed properly. We've had scientists in the group, Tim Webb, obviously Dr. Nick Salt, and Claire Wong, who are really genuinely concerned about the particulate matter. And you can't smell that.
As you leave the group, Audrey, now, do you leave feeling like you've got unfinished business with things as they are at this stage, or do you leave with your head held high thinking that, do you know what, we've made a real difference for people in that part of Newcastle-under-Lyme?
It's a bit of both, really. I'm quite like taken back that it's come to this, because we've done so well. I don't think we could take it any further than what we've done, but we'll still be following on a personal level, and reporting ourselves and putting pressure on the council still, because from the 5th of March that sorry.
Yeah, the abatement notice
comes into effect. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, they can use the abatement notice to actually fine the company, can't they, Audrey? So
they can.
It's there's a lot of platforms that have been set up so that when the four of us walk away, we've left the community with good tools, and it's up to the authorities like the EA, Newcastle Borough Council and DEFRA, they're really going to have to step in, because they've been under heavy pressure. We've had Professor Trevor McMillan from Keele University, who put out an open letter.
Yeah.
We've had Aaron Bell, he's been amazing, and he's kept it in the press.
Finally, Lee, sorry to butt in. As you four leave the Stop the Stink group now, you've just mentioned the word community there, and you've just mentioned the words stepping away. What are your hopes for the community now and for the future of the group as you do step away from the Stop the Stink group, which is what it was all about?
Well, I just hope that, some of the community members can take up, like, Dr. Nick Salt's legacy, that lives on, and that they can run with the baton, and make sure that they keep the pressure up, that residents phone the EA and report, which is 0800 80 70 60, and they phone the Newcastle Borough Council. There is things that the community can do, and I'm just hoping that some of the key members can step up and I mean, me personally, I'm a huge Dr. Mick Salt fan. I don't think that anybody, yeah, we are, and that's why we've walked away with him and you know, to support him like fully, because the guy is so good.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody that can step into his shoes, unfortunately.
Lee, Audrey, thank you so much for your time this morning. A pleasure to speak to you. That is Audrey Young and Lee Bernadette Walford, who until Friday were key members of the Stop the Stink campaign, trying to improve the quality of air around Silverdale and surrounding parts of Newcastle under Lyme because of the smell that was coming from Wally's Quarry landfill. Wally's Quarry Limited has sent us a very, very brief statement which says the Environment Agency has consistently recognised and reported that emissions are falling and are safe. We are grateful to the members of the local community who've engaged with us constructively. So that, the very latest from the people behind the Stop the Stink campaign, talking about the smell coming from Wally's Quarry landfill in Silverdale.